Migrating to cloud might sound like an exciting idea, but it has its own complexities. Today, we'll talk about 6 different cloud migration strategies which you should be aware of if you are working on cloud, if you are a technical architect, cloud architect, or a program manager. These strategies have its own pros and cons. So in this video, we'll get an overview of these 6 different strategies and which particular strategy might suit your particular use case. So I hope by the end of this video, you'll exactly know how to migrate something from on-prem to the cloud and what kind of strategies we could adopt. And if you do learn something out of it, please don't forget to hit the like button. So without further ado, let's get started. So guys, the very first migration strategy is to rehost, and we also call it lift and shift. It is one of the most straightforward ways to move to the cloud. We'll talk about all the 6 strategies on this particular roadmap. So lift and shift means anything on your on-prem data center could be lifted and shifted directly to the cloud. For example, if you have your Oracle database here, you can pick it up and you can migrate it into a VM instance within Google Cloud. So rehosting could be done with 2 ways. One is through automated ways, where you would have some automated migration tools with which you could migrate it. If not, and if there is no compatibility, you can also take the manual route where you will manually install, configure and deploy any kind of resource from your on-prem to your cloud. So rehosting is very common, and what are the advantages? First of all, it is very fast. So you get business value very quickly. You don't need to go into the complexity of these systems. You have to just pick it and ship it into the cloud. The second is low risk, because you are not playing around with the logic of your code or your application. You are just lifting and shifting the infrastructure bit. It has inherently lower risk. Third, it could be automated, which I said, if you have proper automation strategy, this whole migration could be automated and you will not have any manual effort, and you can do the migration in full, which means that there will be no partial application lying on-prem and partial application moved to the cloud. There would be no silos being created on your DC. You could take the whole application and move it to the cloud. So you could do the end-to-end migration very easily. So now let's talk about some downsides as well of this strategy. The very first is you won't be able to use cloud-based services which are way cheaper and efficient. For example, instead of using an on-prem DB deployed on a VM, you could also use database services provided by Amazon like AWS RDS, or for Google Cloud we have Google Cloud SQL, or something for Azure. So these services would be more efficient and these would be more cheaper than to maintain these infrastructure on the cloud. You will have to deploy your operations team, your DBAs, everyone to manage these environments here as well, right? But here in all the heavy lifting, all the infra part is taken care by Google, and you just purely do your stuff, or for that matter AWS as well. And also, because this could be your legacy environment, and when you eventually move it to the cloud, you might face some sort of performance bottlenecks. So that is also one of the risks. But this is by far one of the very straightforward strategy, and it is sometimes taken as your first step towards cloud, because no organization is always cloud ready. So sometimes there are organizations which need to take a step-by-step approach. So rehosting is generally your step 1 towards your cloud journey and towards your digital transformation. Once you are in the cloud, you could then break these monolith applications into microservices and move ahead as well. So guys, the second strategy is to replatform, which is also called as lift, reshape and shift. And in this, with slight modifications, we can take the resources from our on-prem data center and we can replatform it onto a cloud service. For example, if we have a MySQL database server here, we can use, for example, AWS RDS, a relational DB service, and we can choose MySQL as a DB option there, and we can reconfigure it. What advantage you get from this? Then you could leverage cloud services more efficiently with this. And the second is there is no OS and hypervisor dependency. You're not taking the physical infrastructure with you on the cloud. You're just taking your DB, you're just taking your application. For example, if you have a Java application deployed on your Tomcat environment, you just have to take the code and then deploy it in something like Google App Engine, which is a platform as a service offering. So with slight modifications, you could take whatever is there in your environment and re-platform it onto the cloud. Other is it has lesser maintenance, because obviously a lot of heavy lifting will be done by the cloud provider. You could also leverage latest OS and database features on the cloud. But this strategy comes with its own cost because it needs more planning. Moving something from one platform to the other will need more planning because it will increase the complexity, and because it will increase the complexity, overall time and the cost will increase as well. That's why you need better planning if you are choosing to replatform. Sometimes this replatform happens and combines your rehosting journey as well. So some of your applications will go via the rehosting route, while some applications will get replatform and then using automated migration would be migrated to the cloud. You could also have multiple strategies working in parallel because not all of your systems will follow one particular strategy. So you could have rehost and replatform at the same time. Another thing is, you need new cloud expertise, because obviously you were managing it here, but when you'll go to the cloud, you have to understand how this service works within the cloud environment. So these are the things you need to consider before replatforming to the cloud. So now let's go to our third strategy.
Friends, as we are talking about cloud migration, let me tell you that cloud is also one of the biggest market for all the IT industry and all the IT enthusiasts. If you are someone who wants to get into IT, if you are someone who wants to make a career switch into cloud, then let me tell you that there are so many roles which includes technical as well as non-technical roles. So cloud has a lot of options as far as the career is concerned. And to help you in this journey, I have come up with a new course which is called as AWS for Dummies, Cloud 101, AWS for Dummies, which will act as your baby steps to take your first steps towards cloud, especially if you want to take your first steps into a leading cloud provider such as AWS, because AWS has so far the biggest demand in the cloud market. So in this particular course, we'll take our baby step understanding cloud computing, and then we'll also understand the core services of AWS. And I'm sure after taking this course, you would be in a position where you could understand the cloud, but more importantly, you can explain cloud to anybody. Especially you can explain how AWS works, what are the key services of AWS works. So if this is something you're looking for, if you are someone who's not from IT and wants to come into IT in cloud, if you are someone who's working in IT as a fresher or as a beginner but want to make a career switch into cloud, or if you are someone who has already worked on Google Cloud and Azure and wants to understand AWS at a beginner level, then I would highly recommend that you check out this course. The link would be in the description, and there is a limited offer going on wherein if you use the code AWS40, you will get 40% off on this particular course.
The third strategy is to repurchase. As the name suggests, we in this particular strategy consider moving into a completely different platform, a completely different product, and more often than not, we go for a SaaS based product. For example, if you are running your data warehouse or your database solutions on-prem, you might decide to move to Snowflake, which is a database as a service solution, which is a SaaS offering for your data warehousing solutions, right? So in that case, what you need to do is you need to buy the SaaS platform, whichever you want to move to. You have to purchase that, and then you have to install and reconfigure and migrate your application to that particular SaaS platform. So in this particular approach, there could be many options. For example, you might be running something on-prem on your local DB environment, but then eventually you could migrate to something which is completely managed by the cloud provider like Amazon RDS. Another example could be you would be managing your firewalls manually, but then you could also use web application firewalls from all different cloud providers. So in that way, what you're doing, you are repurchasing those kind of services and replacing whatever you were using on-prem with those services. Now the benefits are very evident. First is SaaS benefit, because it's software as a service. You will have enough benefits which are quite evident. You would have reduced efforts of managing it. It would be faster to migrate. This kind of strategy is very fast. But on the downside, you will have complex dependencies. You need to understand what kind of systems interact with this particular service and how it will happen when it will eventually move to a SaaS platform. So that's one. Secondly, you have to build your expertise, right? Because if you have been working on a different environment altogether, a different platform, and all of a sudden you are asked to work on Snowflake or something like that, it's a big shift as a technical person. So that's another thing. And but the advantage is you eventually replace your legacy platforms with a SaaS based solution. So if you are looking far ahead in your digital roadmap, your digital transformation roadmap, this could be a very strong point, especially when you go for your funding request and you ask the senior stakeholders to fund these kind of projects. So yes, this is our third strategy, which is to repurchase. The fourth strategy is by far the most advanced migration strategy, because here you are completely redesigning your application and making it a cloud native application. So in this particular approach, you will take some of your legacy monolith application, you will redesign the app, redesign its solution architecture and convert it into a microservices application. You will run through the whole code deployment, you will run through your whole software development life cycle, and then eventually you will deploy it into the cloud, you will integrate into the cloud. It is like a big project which you run within your migration project. So re-architecting your application will completely change the dynamics of what it was previously. It is like a new avatar of your application, but then it will go a long way in your cloud adoption journey. Obviously it has its own complexities, it takes its own time, and it needs a lot of skills and lot of domain expertise to be able to crack this, because someone who has worked in your organization for a long time, who knows the design, the compliance, the policies, the frameworks in and out, those would be the people who would be needed on this team. So what are some pros of this approach? Well, you will get a lot of efficiency and agility because you will migrate into a cloud native solution. So for example, if your microservices application needs changes, it could be done on demand without any downtime. So those kind of benefits, cloud native benefits, we have talked a lot. No infrastructure maintenance, this is also one of the common benefits you get. But if we have to summarize, I think the fourth one completely summarizes the benefits of this approach, which is an ideal digital transformation, because you are actually looking far ahead into your cloud journey and you are taking those hard steps, those pains, which would actually give you return on investment later on. So yeah, these are the benefits. But obviously, as I said, this is a complex, lengthy approach, so it would be costly. You would need expertise. You would have to assess your vendors, your partners very carefully, because they would be on this journey, and if they are not efficient, if they don't have enough knowledge and expertise, you would be in a soup. So that has to be assessed a lot. And obviously, as the time grows, and if this journey as far as it goes ahead in the time, it becomes more costlier. So re-architecting, while it is the best approach, it has to be assessed very carefully. So now let's talk about our fifth and sixth strategies together. So the last two strategies are very straightforward, which is to either retain or retire. It is self-explanatory, but I'll just cover it quickly. So retaining means, after careful assessment, if you feel that the applications are not ready to move into the cloud, there are certain challenges, bottlenecks, dependencies of certain old infrastructure, it could be your mainframe environments which could not be migrated at this point of time, then you would simply maintain the status quo and retain your infrastructure as is, and then maybe think of other ways to leverage cloud. And the last one is retire. The applications which are old, which are legacy, which have already been moved to new options within your environment, or which are not serving any purpose to you and only sitting in your data center eating your infrastructure cost, maintenance cost, then you simply decide to retire. So retain and retire are backward strategies. We are not actually moving towards the cloud, but these could also save you a lot of time and efforts, and maybe eventually help you take these options in future. So guys, I hope these 6 cloud migration strategies are now clear to you. It might be asked in your interview questions, it might be discussed while you are actually planning a migration as an architect or as a manager. So yes, if you got anything out of it, please give a thumbs up, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, comment what you would want to learn next. I keep on making videos on whatever I learn in my daily life and career. So until next time guys, keep learning, keep sharing all your knowledge, and yes, keep hustling. Bye for now.
Friends, as we are talking about cloud migration, let me tell you that cloud is also one of the biggest market for all the IT industry and all the IT enthusiasts. If you are someone who wants to get into IT, if you are someone who wants to make a career switch into cloud, then let me tell you that there are so many roles, which includes technical as well as non-technical roles. So cloud has a lot of options as far as the career is concerned. And to help you in this journey, I have come up with a new course which is called as AWS for Dummies, Cloud 101, AWS for Dummies, which will act as your baby steps to take your first steps towards cloud, especially if you want to take your first steps into a leading cloud provider such as AWS, because AWS has so far the biggest demand in the cloud market. So in this particular course, we'll take our baby step understanding cloud computing, and then we'll also understand the core services of AWS. And I will sure after taking this course, you would be in a position where you could understand the cloud, but more importantly, you can explain cloud to anybody. Especially you can explain how AWS works, what are the key services of AWS works. So if this is something you're looking for, if you are someone who's not from IT and wants to come into IT in cloud, if you are someone who's working in IT as a fresher or as a beginner but want to make a career switch into cloud, or if you are someone who has already worked on Google Cloud and Azure and wants to understand AWS at a beginner level, then I would highly recommend that you check out this course. The link would be in the description, and there is a limited offer going on wherein if you use the code AWS40, you will get 40% off on this particular course.